Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, December 2nd. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the top 25 as we approach Conference Championship Week. In this segment, we turn our attention to winners and losers from a wild rivalry week. The final week in college football always gives us a show. We've got winners coming up in just a second, but before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, December 2nd. But like I was saying, in this segment, we are going to hit the winners and losers, starting off, as always, with the winners. We have 5 winners, 5 losers, and I will say there are a lot more than 5 things, 5 teams, 5 people, 5 themes that I thought could be winners this week. I narrowed it down to my top 5, though, so we're going to kick it off right now at number 5 with Notre Dame. I talked a lot about Notre Dame in our top 25 just a segment ago, but to continue it, Notre Dame clinched themselves a college football playoff spot. They are one of a few teams that absolutely 100% are a lock for the college football playoff now. There is not a single thing that they can do to miss the college football playoff with where they are ranked, with how the way the rest of the schedule is going. They have locked themselves in. Congratulations to Notre Dame on the 5 seed, in my opinion. Maybe they can get to 6, but they will be hosting a game in South Bend for the first ever 12-team college football playoff. They dispatched of the best team that was on their schedule. And you can talk about how it was a weak schedule. You can talk about how they lost to NIU, I understand. But what they've done since that loss has been really, really impressive to me. They go out there and they beat both service academies while they were undefeated. They take out Navy, they take out Army, they dispatch both of them. Both of those teams were ranked in the top 25 at the time. So you can talk about strength of schedule, but they have now taken care of 2 top 25 teams. That's a solid resume. They also took out USC. I understand USC was kind of a middling team in the Big Ten, but that is a rivalry game. That adds some extra pressure right there. That was on the road. Adds some extra pressure right there. And that was a game that, for USC at least, kind of was their Super Bowl. With the way that the season has gone, they got absolutely destroyed in that one. They have stepped up every single time there has been some big question asked of them, and outside of that one blemish on their schedule, they have answered it. Notre Dame is the number 5 winner of the week. At number 4, it's Penn State. They go out there, and they look like they were in trouble a little bit in the beginning against Penn State. No question about it. They go down 7-0, still down 7-3, and then the offense explodes against Maryland. They do their thing, and not only do they do their thing, but they have clinched a spot in the Big Ten championship game. They have the right to potentially get the number 1 overall seed if they beat Oregon. There is a real argument for Penn State to be the number 1 team in the nation. They get their shot at it. They get their shot at a first-round bye at a minimum, and that is huge for a program that under James Franklin has been known as the team that is perpetually 3rd place, perpetually behind Ohio State, behind Michigan, behind the true juggernauts in the Big Ten. They get their chance to plant the flag. They have their chance to win a Big Ten championship for the first time in a very long time after Ohio State slips up against Michigan for the 4th straight season. A massive win for Penn State. They are the 4th winner of the week. At number 3, our number 3 winner this week, after being the biggest loser last week, they're back here. It's the SEC. How about the SEC? I stood here last week and loudly proclaimed they lost a spot in the college football playoff. Now I'm here to say, nuh-uh. I take that back. After the losses from Ohio State and a loss from Miami especially, that's the big one here, I believe the SEC has gotten back that extra spot that the ACC had basically taken from them. Miami had that spot locked up all season, but they were teetering on the edge. They drop a bad one to Syracuse. That opens up the door for Most likely Alabama. I think it should be South Carolina. You can make an argument for Ole Miss. It's probably going to be Alabama, though. But the SEC gets a spot, a win, after seeming like they had lost themselves, a spot behind the Big Ten. They would only had 3. The Big Ten would have had 4. That's a big win for the SEC, and they're the number 3 winners this week. Getting to number 2, the second biggest winner of the week is Clemson. How about a lucky break for them? They go out there, and not only do they not get their end of the bargain done, they lose to their rival. That's 2 ticks in the wrong, but they get the biggest check. Miami loses a game, their second conference loss. Wow, this is just the first conference loss for Clemson. Clemson, a team that has been weak, to say the least. They have. They've just not been that good. They have not performed well against good teams, and we see that week in and week out. Their losses to 2 SEC teams and to 1 ACC school. Louisville, one of those very underrated schools. They get a big win. I still think they're a very good team, right? They take a loss there. Then they lose to both Georgia. They get destroyed by in South Carolina with his heroics at the end this week in a rivalry game. That's 3 losses to really the 3 big games, only 3 big games that they've played. We can talk about Pitt. I guess that's a big win for them. Pitt was really falling apart at the end. Virginia Tech, maybe that's their biggest win. Virginia Tech barely made a bowl game. They finished at 6-6. These are not super impressive wins. These are not wins that you go out there and you say, "Hi, I am Clemson, and I beat Virginia Tech." No. But they found their way into the conference championship game, and now they have a 1-game playoff. They have a 1-game shot to win the ACC and get a seed in the college football playoff. Now, if they do, they're going to be the 12th seed. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Honestly, I don't think they really even deserve a shot, but that's how it goes. That's how it's supposed to be done, and I don't mind it. I think it's cool that this team gets a shot, but they don't really get a chance. I don't think they really stand a chance against an SMU squad. We will see what happens. But Clemson is the number 2 winner of the week. And at number 1, the biggest winner this week is just old school rivalries. We had gotten to a point in college football where, yes, there were some bad blood between Ohio State and Michigan in the game. There was the bad blood in the Iron Bowl between Auburn and Alabama. But these other rivalries seemingly had lost their luster. But what we saw this week in college football showed that there are still rivalries live and well in college football. We saw not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 teams plant their flag, plant their spear at midfield after the game. Led to 4 fights, led to 4 brawls. It led to a whole argument. Should they be allowed to do it or not? My take: let them do it. Doesn't really matter. But it just shows me that the sport of college football is not going anywhere. It's been a very tumultuous road this season, really, in college football. It's been a new era, really. This is the beginning of a new era in college football, and it's very important that if you want to keep those traditions alive, you continue it with all of the changes the sport is going through. Not just the expanded playoffs, not just the expanded conferences, not just the NIL, but just all of it happening at once, really. It can change the sport. It can kill the sport, and that's something I was very concerned about at the beginning of the season. What this week showed me, what this rivalry week showed me, is that this sport is alive and well, and it does not matter which direction it heads in. It will continue to be the college football that we know and love as the years go on. Rivalries win the week. Huge performances, huge games, huge upsets. We love to see it. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, not only did we go over our top 5 winners, but there's also an opposite side of the coin. Who had the worst week? Who had the top 5 hardest weeks on all of college football? We'll talk about that coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, December 2nd. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the top 5 winners from last week in college football. On the other side of the coin, in this segment, we turn our attention to the biggest losers, the top 5 biggest losers this week in college football. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, December 2nd. But like I was saying, in this segment, we turn our attention to the losers of the week. We just went over the winners, and you can't have winners without losers. And in sports, there's no bigger disparity there. But at number 5, the 5th biggest loser of the week, we're going to go all the way back to Friday night when the Georgia Tech Bulldogs Georgia Tech took on the Georgia Bulldogs. And we had some overtime, 8 overtimes to be exact. Overtime rules here came into question, and it kind of got quieted by the chaos that was this weekend and the whole flag planting issues. But the overtime rules here still shine big. This is something that has been heavily debated, not just across the college football sphere, but just the football sphere as a whole. What's the best way to do overtimes? There were plenty of issues with it, and I don't think anybody was really happy with it in the end. The biggest issue that I had with it, and the biggest issue that I saw a lot of other people with it, was the fact that they just kept walking back and forth, which I understand. You get to choose, hey, you want to play in front of the band, it makes it harder for the away team. You want to make sure it's even. But the bigger issue is the timeouts, right? The fact that they get a whole new timeout every single overtime. You saw the way that Kirby Smart was taking advantage of that, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not mad at Kirby Smart for doing that. He did his job. He had his timeouts. He did what he needed to do. But I think there needs to be some kind of rule. Maybe, and I'm not here to figure that out. I don't really know what it would be. I don't mind the dueling 2-point conversions, honestly. It's not something I hate. I love that there's no way to tie in college football. It's one of my biggest issues with the NFL, is the fact that there is a tie at the end of it. And we almost saw one earlier between the Panthers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after they went back and forth on possessions. But this is a issue with the overtime rules. There's a way to fix it. I think they should just continue to do what they do for the first 2 overtimes. Just go back and forth. There's no reason to just, make them get rid of the actual football part of football. I like that it goes forever, though. It's something I do like about it. But let me know, how would you fix the OT rules? That's my number 5 loser of the week. Number 4, the 4th biggest loser, and a team that got themselves eliminated with a real shot to make some noise and make some chaos continue to stir up in the college football world. It's Texas A&M. They went out there in the biggest game of their season, a rivalry that was renewed after over 10 years of being dormant between them and Texas. The in-state rivalry there, and Texas and game day came down for it, right? It was in their house. It was loud. Everyone was excited. The offense put up a fat goose egg, a 0. Absolutely nothing on the scoreboard from the offense. The defense had a pick 6. The defense played great. That's been kind of the way to describe Texas A&M all season long, really. The offense has been inconsistent. The defense has been great. They did their job against a Texas team that's very high-powered, a good Texas squad, but Texas A&M has eliminated themselves from college football playoff. They had a chance to win out and make the playoffs and really, really bring out the chaos in a season that already has been one of, if not the most chaotic seasons in the history of college football. They failed to do that. They're on the loser side of it. They're at number 4. Our number 3 loser of the week, we take a step back, go to the group of 5 on Thursday night. How about Tulane? The Green Wave lose. They had a top-tier ticket, a real shot of making the college football playoff ahead of one of the group of 5 teams, ahead of one of the Power 5 teams, right? We had conversations about it. I didn't have it happening, but if Arizona State had lost, if Iowa State had lost, neither of those ended up happening. But if they had won, first of all, that was the biggest checklist. They had a real argument to get in as that 5th conference. They were crawling their way up the rankings. They were 1 spot behind the highest ranked Big 12 team. Now they're not going to make it. And it sucks. I was ready for that to happen. I was ready to see the chaos that would ensue in the Big 12 if the American Conference has gotten it ahead of them. Do I really think it was going to happen? No. But now we know for sure it's not going to happen. Tulane had a golden opportunity to make chaos reign in college football, and with the way the season has gone, I was ready for it. I was prepared. I had my hatches buttoned down. But for now, Tulane, the third biggest loser of the week. Our second biggest loser, it's Miami. We talked a lot about it earlier on in the show. They just can't get it done. That defense is just not good. That's the reason they're not going to make the college football playoff. You talk about a team that got themselves eliminated. It's Miami, in my opinion. Now, I know they could still find a way in as like the 11-ish seed if the committee still believes in them. I think they're out, and I think they need a little bit of help to get in. I think the ACC has just lost one of their bids to the playoff, and now we take a look at where we sit in college football. Miami on the outside looking in, we're looking at probably another Alabama slipping into the playoffs at the last second, if I'm being honest with you. Not a fun time, not what I wanted to see, not what I think most people in the country wanted to see. It's probably going to happen, though. I don't think Alabama deserves to get in, but Miami, with that defense, they probably did not deserve to get in. Anthony asks, do you think it's a scheme Miami's running or the players? I don't want to say it's the players necessarily, but it's not really the scheme either. Right? It's probably a mix of both, if I'm being honest, right? Syracuse's offense is no slouch. Don't get me wrong. Syracuse has an offense that has consistently gotten them out of jams because Syracuse and Miami are the same team. They are the exact same team, just Miami has a more consistent offense. They were too reliant on Cam Ward, and he kind of just ran out of gas there at the end. He had a great game. He really did. I'm going to blame the scheme. I'm going to blame the players a little bit more than the scheme because I don't think they're really running anything too complicated. You take a look at what they're doing. They're just not executing at the level that you need to execute. It's a little bit of both, though. It really is. Miami's defense just was not good enough, and it came back to bite them multiple times down the stretch of the season against Georgia Tech and now against Syracuse. But at number one, who else would it be other than Ohio State and Ryan Day? They are the biggest losers of the week, the fourth straight time that they have now lost to Michigan. And this is different than any of the other losses. The other ones, this is a Michigan team that's undefeated heading into it. This is a Michigan team that's trying to make the conference championship game. This is a Michigan team that's competing for the playoffs, for the national title. But not this one. This year's Michigan team was 5-6 heading into the game. This year's Michigan team was probably not going to make a bowl game. This year's Michigan team did not have a quarterback. This year's Michigan team was not the answer. This is just... There's not a lot of words to describe it, really, for Ohio State. It's incredibly disappointing. This is a fireable offense, honestly. He just cannot get up. Ryan Day cannot find a way to game plan against Michigan. They just needed to take advantage of their bad secondary, and they did not do that. They instead tried to run the ball, a place where Ohio State's been weak all season, the offensive line, against the one strength that Michigan had, the defensive line. They go out there, it's just not it. Anthony said a lot of Miami fans, which I am a part of, are saying that when your scheme relies on one position, it's a bad sign. You might not be a good coordinator. I don't think it's a good idea either to rely on one person. But honestly, there's a lot of schemes that work like that because his scheme relies so much on the star position that it seems like it's either he can't coach to the players or it's over-reliant on the star position. I think you're right, actually. I think it is over-reliant. I think that's what it is. It's over-reliant on the star position. There's plenty of college defenses and professional defenses that work like that. I know the star is something that's, making its way up there, and it's not like they don't have guys in that Miami defense. They wouldn't be up there. They have defense. The defense can make plays, but it is definitely a little bit of both. Like I said, the players, you are right. They don't have the players to make the scheme work, and the scheme isn't good enough for the players. They're not adjusting. It's just not a good defense. Whatever the actual reason is, I think that honestly is a really good diagnosis of it, Anthony. But whatever it is, it's just not working over there in Miami. And I wanted Miami to make the playoffs, honestly. I thought they were a fun team. I love watching Cam Ward play. Miami has not been that same Miami in a very long time, and I was looking forward to getting that Miami in these high leverage situations, but it just doesn't live up to it. But those are our top 5 losers of the week. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention to the NFL. Monday Night Football currently underway. I promise you I'm not cheating. I have my preview for that. We'll talk about what I expect to happen as well as some updates as we currently stand. The Broncos are ahead of the Browns. Oh, never mind. Tie game, 7-7, 1 minute to go in the first. We're going to talk about that game, how it's going right now, and what I expect down the stretch here. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.